And generally, the what helps me move on is just giving myself time, giving myself a break. Uh, when you're passionate about something,
Hold on just a second, Guido. Hold on just a second.
yeah.
I got a live error. I'm not sure what happened here. Hey, welcome, Ed. Good to see you.
Hey, Ed.
Hi.
So you know what? It didn't start, guys. It didn't start.
Oh,
No, here we go.
okay.
Here we
So
go. Now we're
we're
back live.
live.
Now we're back live. Now we're live. Okay, here we go. Had a little bit of I think some kind of internet outage there, but we're live now.
Okay, okay. So yeah, like I was saying, it's very common to. I think we've been only been live for 40 seconds,
Yeah.
judging by the hello that just came in.
Yeah, something cut us out. Yeah.
Okay.
We're okay now, though. So let's jump over to Edward. Edward, welcome to the show. We'll sort of start right out with you. Then we were talking about mental health issues, right?
Mhm.
So let's ask you: do you have burnout at all in your working on your creative projects? And if you do, how do you deal with it?
I mean, it's something, I think it's inevitable. You're going to get hit with burnout. And one of the things that I do is try to focus on something else that I'm passionate about. I do a lot of audio editing. That's something I do that's fun, that I can play with, and kind of feels nothing like creating comic books, but it's still using those creative energies. I'll do lots of really long runs, just things to try to reset and refocus, because burnout's going to come, especially if you're like a lot of creators I know, and you're still working a 9 to 5. You still have to have that job that pays the bills, because unfortunately the comic's not doing that yet. So it's something, I definitely feel it, and I just try to get myself refocused and then get back into the comic game when when you've had just a small moment to reset.
Yeah. And look, I get it too. I get burnout pretty bad. And one of the things that I sometimes get, and it was, first of all, I got to give a shout out. It was Carissa Grant that mentioned this topic to me, because we all suffer, right, from imposter syndrome. And I still have it, right? Like, and I've got several books out now, but I go to places and I'm like, oh, I can't believe they let me in here. I feel like they got the wrong guy, right? Katrina, do you have imposter syndrome?
I do. I have it worse with Kickstarter. Where I look at my projects, and my projects are very different. I edit comics. I don't write comics.
Mm-hmm.
So my Kickstarters are for prose books. I write children's books. And I'm around all these comic creators with these big campaigns. And I'm like, I don't know that I belong with you guys. Even though, I edit comics, I work in comics. But when I look at, what they're doing and what I'm doing, I'm like, man, I'm so small. Am I, can I really do this?
Yeah.
I'm lucky that I've got, pep talk people.
Yeah. Yeah, you're doing it though,
Hey,
Katrina.
Brian.
Hey, Brian, good to see you. Oh yeah, by the way, Brian's one of your clients now, right?
Brian is one of my
Nice.
comics. He's one of my
Nice.
comics. He's one of my clients. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, we've
Let's
been working together for what, 4 or 5 years now on The Wretched. So I'm excited to see that in progressing. Oh, we've lost your voice, Tim.
Yep. We can hear you.
Just static.
Nope. No, sorry. Now you're mute.
I got a short in my cord there.
There.
There we go.
Question. So how about you? Do you suffer from imposter syndrome? And if you do, how do you handle it?
Well, I depends on the stretch of what I consider imposter syndromes. I mean, many times I do suffer from low self-esteem. Like I see my project and I compare it to others, and I think maybe I'm not at this level. I'm not at that level. I wish.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? Your book looks great. What do you mean?
Yeah, that's the thing. Sometimes I do look at it and I feel proud, but others, I'm Others I'm saying I think it depends on the mindset that I wake up with each day. Some days I wake up on the wrong side of the bed. I'm just like, oh, this doesn't measure up. But then others I do, I look at it and I say, this is actually very good. Or I pick up a book by, I don't know, a mainstream whatever, and I say, "But I actually think mine's better." But yeah, it depends. I guess how do I deal with it? It depends on the day and the mood. I mean, I guess in my case, imposter syndrome and the self-esteem depends just on the mood. I'm not sure if that qualifies as suffering from
Well, okay,
imposter
let me ask you
syndrome
this
or
question
just
then. What would happen? What would have to happen before you defeated your imposter syndrome? Like you'd have to have so much sales or so many followers. What would make you no longer have imposter syndrome?
I guess receiving positive feedback. Something that really psychs me up is when I get reviews, for example, especially reviews or feedback that I didn't request, and they're good, and they tell me, "Hey, I love your stuff. I like this. I like this and that. I love this character." That sort of thing. It really like it's like a shot of adrenaline. It's like, damn, yeah, yeah, this is what I wanted to do. This is what I live for. And even if it's meaningless, to me, it means a lot. So I guess that's the cure for my personal imposter syndrome.
That's a great answer. So followers, please take that to heart. We love to get feedback on our projects. It's actually pretty rare to get feedbacks.
Mhm.
Edward, how about you, man? We're excited about your latest project, Immortal Era.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always there, that imposter syndrome, especially. I mean, it hit really hard the first time I did different cons, because you had these people that have been there, they've been there for years, and here you are walking in there, and you feel like you don't belong, even though you're walking into a small press area or an artist alley. These
Yeah.
are well-established people; they know each other, and they have the secret code, and you don't feel like you know the secret code. So you feel like, okay, I definitely don't belong in this room. But like Guido was saying, I think what can break that is when you get positive feedback, whether that be in writing, whether that be just from someone who comes up to your table and says, "Oh my gosh, I just got this book. I love it. I told my friends about it. They want to read it." That kind of helps break the imposter syndrome. And then, of course, anytime you get a good write up, that kind of makes you realize, all right, I'm not just a nobody in the vast array
Mhm.
of the universe. You have people that actually love your writing, and I'm sure there's people that hate it too. I don't want to hear from them, but I'm sure one day I will. But I think that would break the imposter syndrome too, because like, all right, wait, I finally got one of those trolls coming my way. Not inviting
Yeah.
trolls, please stay away.
I mentioned before on one of the broadcasts, as a matter of fact, Guido, I had this conversation with Phil Russer that
Oh yeah,
having haters is one of these steps to success. And I mean this, I'm not trying to sound edgy, but
yeah,
like the same way that failure is a step toward, when people start here like, hey, this isn't any good and you suck, whatever, it's still, you're hearing that because you're technically one level above everybody. That's why
yeah,
it stings.
yeah. Well, maybe I disagree with the word step. I'd say symptom. I mean, failure is a step. Yeah,
Yeah,
haters. I'd
yeah,
consider it more like a symptom of
yeah.
success. But yes, definitely a symptom or an indicator of success. Yeah. I mean, people don't bother hating you if you're no one. If
Right,
you
right.
mean nothing to them, that's it. They wouldn't bother hating you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd like to send a shout out to my hater. I know he watches the show here, and he puts insulting comments about me in the comments, and I hope he watches tonight. I'm a fan of it. I'm again, it's bad and insulting, but I am narcissistic. It is still about me, right? So,
Yeah, of course, of course.
so
Do
let's
we?
switch topics. Let's switch topics a little to conventions, right?
Mhm.
So first of all, are all of it, by a show of hands, are we all going to try and do conventions this year?
Oh yeah,
Fine. We are.
I've already done
Well,
one, and I have
me,
another
I
one
will.
next week. So I'm already
I
on.
wish
I'm
I.
Already doing those.
I'm in a hotel
I'm.
room this weekend right now
No.
for a convention.
Let's start
I'm
with
going
Katrina.
to do my
Katrina,
best. Yeah.
let's hear your con schedule and what's next for you.
Well, right now I did Midland Mall Comic Con the first part of March. This weekend I'm at AlmaCon, which is a small anime convention, which I totally don't belong at. I don't know why they keep letting me in. I do nothing anime, but they keep letting me in. And then the only thing I have solidly scheduled is in St. Catharines, Ontario, Thanksgiving weekend.
That's pretty nice. That looks like a good schedule. Good luck with it. Guido, how about you? You have a convention lined up? What's next for you?
Well, honestly, I'm from Buenos Aires, Argentina. So here, I don't have the book printed with me. First, I would need to translate it and then print it over here. I'm hoping that I can get to that by middle of this year, maybe. And yes, if I get it done, yes, I'll do some conventions around here. I know Phil Russert, my editor, my publisher, he will be doing some cons, and he has some copies of the Night Trade. Hopefully, he can print some more and more of these issues to take with him. But I can't. I'm not sure about his schedule. I'll have to ask him.
Gotcha. And do you mind if I ask, Guido, how did you get paired up with Filbo Publishing?
Oh well, that was interesting story. Originally, Night was being published by Evoluzione Publishing, but it was a low-selling book over there, so it was getting low priority. Evoluzione, run by Marcel Dupree, he was focusing on newer books and others that would sell more. So eventually, I had a talk with him, and I told him, "Hey, listen, it feels like Night won't be coming out until you get out these books. So I'm going to look for another publisher that can publish me, if possible, right away." And he was like, "Yeah, okay, understandable." We're still on good terms with Marcel. But yeah, so I reached out to Phil. I was already a fan of Tragedy, his main book, and I wrote to him on Facebook, asking him if by any chance he'd consider publishing me. And he said, "You know what? I'm actually looking for submissions to publish. So send me an email with everything." And yeah, I think it was a week, and he called me, and we came to terms, and that's it. Here we are. We've already done a successful Kickstarter for the trade, compiling issues 1 to 4, and now we're on issue 5, which launches the second act of the series. So more on that later. I don't want to hijack this
Yeah.
with
That part's coming up.
with my plug.
The book looks great, and I think that's a good match. Phil and those guys, that's a good team over there. I wish you every success with that project.
Thanks.
Sure. Let's jump over to Ed. So Ed, a little bit different for you, right? Self-publisher. You're a little bit more similar to me. Talk about imposter syndrome, right? So you have to wrestle with the numbers, the costs. What kind of setbacks do you have as a self-publisher that make you go, you know what, man, this might be, if I get another one of these, I'm chucking it in. What is your biggest setback and how do you overcome it?
I think the biggest setback is just not recouping the money you paid to do the art for the book and print the book. When you run a Kickstarter that, you set a goal that is modest because you want it to succeed, because any little bit towards it helps, but people just automatically think you met your goal. Of course, you've paid for the book, and they don't realize all the factors that go into the books. Like I run my Kickstarters when the artwork is already done, so that I just am working to recoup the printing fees. But anything above that, really helps keep production moving. And when you start seeing diminishing returns, like I've seen my Kickstarters move up and now they're kind of moving down because I was launching them when we were in the middle of the pandemic and that free money was just floating around. So people
and
have liquid income to throw your way. Now with the tighter economy, they're saying, all right, last time I bought your limited cover, how about a digital copy? Because I still want to support you, but the numbers start to shrink, and that's when it gets hard. And I'm still trying to figure out how to overcome that obstacle, but you try to retool and rethink all the time.
You have another challenge too. First of all, thank you. That's a great answer. And second of all, you have one of the challenges that I have also, which is the first couple of issues of everything always sell pretty well because it's new and people want to check it out. But when you're talking about like number 4, 5, and 6, and in your case, it's number 9, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's difficult to sustain sales numbers at that point.
Yeah, I think it's really difficult to sustain the sales, and then it becomes more daunting for people to catch up. When they look at your catch up tier and it's a trade and 3 floppies just to get caught up, it gets scary to them. And that's why I deliberately threw a standalone issue right in the middle of this story arc. So that way it's like, okay, here's issue 9. You don't need to have read anything else in the series. Of course, it would help if you have read it, but the story stands on its own. And I did that on purpose to say, okay, come on in, new readers. Maybe you want to come in and catch up after that. Maybe you just enjoy a single issue and it's a one and done. But I had to re-strategize that too, because this kind of came out of nowhere where I thought, it's already getting harder for people to catch up. Why don't I write an origin story? Because I always love watching those. You're watching one of your favorite shows on TV, and then it just centers on one character and his backstory and nothing into the moving plot of the story. And I've always loved those. So I decided to do an issue like that for my book that stands on its own and also hopefully brings readers in. But if not, you get them for that one, and then you have another series. That there's always a new series. That's kind of my thought, is I always have new things that are going to be moving. But yeah, it's the higher you get, the more difficult it gets, because I think my peak was when I was releasing the trade and finishing up that story arc, and since then it's been harder and harder. But you also look at the timeline of when you do it, and it's, of course, when people were getting those checks, oh my gosh, that's when I launched one, and that one just exploded. I think I had a 3,000 goal, and it funded in less than 48 hours. So
wow,
you don't see that very often. I mean,
not anymore.
It's a different world right now putting it in there, because there's also so many, not just comic projects, but great comic projects that are on Kickstarter.
Right.
So the competition's a lot fiercer at the moment.
The competition's fiercer. Thanks for saying that. And I will say, first, let's move over to Katrina, right? Because we're talking a little bit about crowdfunding and how that gives us imposter syndrome a little bit. And the first thing, to everybody in this room, congratulations, you're doing it, right? Like there's no wrong way to do it. You guys are doing it, and congratulations on your success. So something that looks hard to me, and I want to hear what Katrina says about this. So you do prose writing. I've been trying to work on a novel, and I'm so intimidated by jumping into the novel space on Kickstarter. Can I ask you, how did you make the jump into that?
Well, I didn't make it. I started there.
Yeah. But you were already an editor, though. You were already well known, right? Yeah. So
I guess. I don't know about well known,
but all of us know you. But how did you get started? You just said, hey, I'm going to write a novel, and you just started?
Well, I mean, I don't do novels. Each book is 20 plus short stories. I have written a novel in a series. It was part of a series that I did with somebody else. And I was intimidated. I thought, especially because I was writing book 3. Books 1 and 2 are already written. Oh, I'm gonna mess this whole thing up. I will say book 3 has never been released. I thought it was okay, but I don't know. The project kind of fell apart. But yeah, I started out in, it's a very small niche of not only the prose side, but in children's books.
Right.
So it's a very small niche and hard to fund. Um, there aren't
How do you,
a lot of pretty
when
pictures you can
you're
show
trying to
people.
pick the goal, when you're trying to pick the goal for those, how do you, when it's a new project, you don't know how many backers you're going to get. How
You
do you pick
don't.
your goal?
This is my fourth Kickstarter, and I set the other ones at $1,000, which covered my artist, my cover art, um, and printing. Um, this time I bumped it to 1,500 because shipping and everything has gone up. And I actually had a creator tell me kind of a how dare you ask for more money. I thought, wow. um, costs go up for me just like they do everybody else.
Yeah, sure.
And we funded because I had a very generous friend who at the end put in a fairly hefty sum of money.
Nice.
Because he just said, I know you're having a lot of health issues, you have just a lot going on. I don't want to see you have to go through another campaign right away.
Yeah.
But it's tough. Especially with crowdfunding, I would say. I don't think that crowdfunding in novels and prose has the following that things like comics and gaming does.
Right. There's not necessarily, even on Facebook, and I try to get in all the groups, because one of the things about the show is we want to make some solutions, like how do you reach these people? And one of the things, I'm like in all the sci-fi groups, right? Which I know comics people do gravitate towards sci-fi groups. They tend to. But I don't know if novel readers will.
Well, the problem I have is everybody's like, well, aren't you in a bunch of parenting groups? Because isn't that your target audience? I said, I'm not, because I don't feel like I belong in parenting groups. My kids are grown. And I don't want to join a group just to sell product. That's not what the groups are. Not what the groups are for.
Right.
And the groups that are for that. Well,
yeah,
we're just selling to each other.
Also, it's networking, right? It's networking. So as long as you're not, boy, it's hard to say because I am also the type, I don't want to spam my customers all the time, but there is a fair amount of marketing. If you turn on your television, boy, you're going to see 6 advertisements in the first 60 seconds, So that's just the way the world is. Let's move the question over to Guido. Same thing for the Kickstarter. When you're running a Kickstarter, now, of course, you're working with a publisher too. How do you guys set what the goal would be? Like, because you don't know, right? Is it, 3,000, 5,000? How do you set it?
Well, more or less, we base ourselves on what other campaigns did. We will always try to shoot for more. We may end up disappointed, but we need to make sure that the goal is always reachable. Let's say feasible, because thing with Kickstarter is if by any chance anything happens, you don't hit the goal, you're left with nothing. So that's our biggest fear, right? If we set a high goal, we may not reach it. If we set it so yeah, overall, my suggestion, and something that I've learned with this last campaign in particular, it's best to set a low goal and reach it and fund it. Of course, this is considering my case where the book is already done, it's already produced, and we just need the funds to print them and get them to the backers. But the book is already done. If you need to collect to produce a book, to produce a comic book, that is a different story, a different calculation, because you need to make sure that you get enough funds to finish the book, while also making sure that each reward tier can pay for itself, let's say.
Right.
Because at some point you need to there's 2 needs, right? Each reward needs to cover its own cost, but also the total goal needs to meet your production needs. It's complicated. I mean, I would have to pull out my calculator and do an example.
Do you do anything Guido, do you do anything like the math? Like say, well, if I get 80% of the previous backers, the last one had 600, or do you just guess?
I do. I do. I go into the campaign with a certain expectation, and of course that expectation get uh, can get trashed, can get burnt to ashes or whatever. For example, when we started this campaign, there were 70 followers on the pre-launch page, and out of the during the first 3 days, we had, I think it was 25, 26 backers. So it was only just a small percentage of that. I was really counting on more turnover. And
Hmm.
yeah, I had my expectations shattered. Uh, and since then, it's been an uphill battle trying to reach as many potential backers as possible, trying to promote, trying to share. And yeah, I'd say do as much math as you can, but yeah, in the end, reality can kick
Come
your
back
ass,
and bite you.
Yep.
Yeah,
or it
yeah, that's
can lift you up. You never know. You never know. It can exceed expectations or not.
so. Edward, same thing for you, right? On Immortal Era, how do you gauge your like in this case? Your example is $3,000 goal. You got
Yeah.
this 2160, 82 backers, 14 days to go. You got this thing wrapped up, right? But how did you choose your goal of 3,000?
I set the goal. Actually, it was a goal that I set previously before the artist has raised his prices because, they're dealing with inflation and everything as well.
Right.
And I set my original goal to meet the artist fees when I published, I think it was issue 1 through 3. That was about what that goal was. Now I look at it as this is a goal that will pay for the printing, all the stretch goals that I print out, and the shipping. So it'll cover the book. And then I'm done with the art all the way up through issue 11. So I look at it like, okay, I need to be putting small pockets away, but that's hopefully what I can do when I work the different cons. Is I look at the cons as the way to actually hopefully get more backers and
Yep.
also keep the production moving and keep the artist paid. So for these,
Yeah.
it's printing, shipping, and then the stretch goals. And then of course, you have to think about you're shipping your stuff in the protected packaging. That's not free. Bags and boards aren't free. So there's all those factors that's what the campaign goes to recuperate. And then if it goes above that, I throw more stretch goals at people and everything else.
Quick question for you.
Mm-hmm.
So I know we use the same printer, right?
Yes.
Yeah. You happy with them? You want to give a shout out?
Comics Wellspring, yeah, I'm
All right, Comics
definitely.
Wellspring.
I'm happy with them.
Yeah, they take care of me. I'll give them a shout out. My question for you is this: Do you Oh, actually, I know the answer, but I'm gonna let you answer to the crowd. You guys don't know. I'm actually one of Edward's customers too. But do you do fulfillment on your own, or do you hire the company to fulfill your orders?
I do fulfillment on my own. The main reason is because I know if I used Comics Wellspring or any of the other fulfillment companies, they wouldn't be able to get the stretch goals in there. And I do like to give my backers something more personal. So for what I said from day one is I will write a personal thank you card to anyone who buys my book. And I still do that. I had one campaign that almost hit 200 backers, and I think 160 of them were physical backers, and it was a lot of thank you cards, but I still do that. And it's something I think that gives the more personal feel. I think that's why people go to places like Kickstarter instead of just, buying their thing from the comic shop, because you get that direct connection with the creators of the
with the
book
creator, right?
itself.
Which is what people on Kickstarter want. And Katrina, you do that also, correct?
I fulfill my
I
own
have a
stuff.
little card from you because I have A Pose Army, and you
Okay.
sent me a little card with it.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll take your word for it. But yeah, I do all of my own fulfillment, and mine are not 200. I wish, but not quite yet.
And do you use Katrina? Do you use pirate ship?
I do use pirate ship.
That's the
Yep.
one everybody uses. Okay. Guido, how about you? You fulfill it yourself? Does Filbo Publishing fulfill it? Does Comics
Yeah,
Wellspring do it?
I think Comics Wellspring is a printer, but yeah, the all campaigns are fulfilled by Phil
Mm.
specifically. And yeah, the guy's like a fulfillment machine. I swear he works so damn fast. It,
Mhm.
my last campaign weren't so many backers, but still, he got the books, and the books were at the post office the other day. So
Wow.
Yeah,
crazy fast how the guy
I'll give
works.
my quick 2 cents. I like I mentioned, I'm the one of the ones that got the card from Edward, and I said, "Hey, man, this is really cool," because I feel that it's the connection with the creator is one of the main things about Kickstarter, and I'm that way, and I assume other people are probably that way too. And I said, "Well, I'm going to change this up because I've had my books professionally fulfilled before." By Comics Wellspring. And by the way, they do a terrific job. Okay.
Yeah.
And you even get a discount, and it works out pretty good. It's not the cost of it, but it is slightly less personal. Right. And, but I have a line, like sometimes I go on these shows and ask questions like, where's your line? I've been lucky enough. I had two that were over 200. My line is 200. And my reason is not because think I'm better or because I don't need to save money. I do need to save money. But what happens is you become post office guy instead of writer
Mhm.
guy. And to me, I'm going to the post office. I mean, it's every day for all but a month, depending on, because I don't do big bins or anything like that. Now, this time, what I'm going to try and do is, package them up myself, because just on my quick shout out, there's some really special stuff. It's got the chrome map. It's got the trading card. There's a print. It's a really nice order. And I want to send a handwritten card the way Ed did. Thanks for the inspiration, Ed. Good job. And but it's going to take me. I mean, it'll take a guy like me 3 weeks to do all that.
Mm.
So,
I
I
do
guess
a marathon day of doing it.
yeah. Now, one thing
let
I'll ask you
myself
guys
do
this:
that.
I don't have really a helping system. I have a convention helping system, but not a fulfillment. Let's do
Right.
that question. Katrina, when you
Mhm.
fulfill, do you have a team to help you, or is it just
Uh,
Katrina?
it's me in my studio with a table and my scale and the printer.
Yep.
And my post office. I live in a little village. I made the mistake once of trying to take packet like a fulfillment package bundle into them. She didn't know what to do. She literally had me take the bags and just dump them over the counter into the bins. And she's like, I'm like, all you have to do is scan them. They're all set. They're all, postage is already done. You just scan them. Okay. So now I take them into a bigger town where they don't freak out, and I can just put them on the counter. They know what to do with them, and go from there.
Nice.
But yeah, it's just me.
Yeah. And, I got to tell you, you're a very active person in the comic community, particularly on the editing forefront. I do a little bit of editing work now myself, and what I try
Mhm.
to do is get any scraps of clients that Katrina did not already get.
And I take the ones that Chuck Pino doesn't already have.
Yeah, right. But it's a fun kind of thing, and I'm
Mhm.
also a little bit more on a production end, like what we did. Some of you guys know it's more like even on the Kickstarter tier. It's like, hey, you're not quite sure how to make your book. Like it's like a
Mhm.
coaching and a whole thing. Like
Oh,
I don't want to use the term "it holds your hand" because that makes it sound like
Well,
denigrating.
it's good to know that
guide
you
you
do that.
along.
Yeah. It's 11 steps. You go through the 11 steps, and a book comes out the other side.
Well, I had somebody who her daughter is a big fan of my books, and she's trying to get her daughter to write a comic. And she's like, I'll come to you when it's time. I said, and I'll pass you off to somebody who knows. I'm good with grammar and punctuation, storylines, but how to actually make a comic, I'm going to give you to somebody who who's actually done that.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah, and that, by the way, that's the part where I come in more, because I'm
Mhm.
more involved in sort of like the paneling and the lettering.
Mhm.
So let's jump over to take a look at Night. So we're getting into the second half of the program. So Guido, tell us a little bit about who will love this project.
Hmm. Yes, well, Night is a fantasy-based street-level superhero book. It's got a mix of elements. It's a superhero story, but with lots of elements of fantasy. The characters' origins are mostly fantasy based. The villain is a reincarnated sorcerer, and knight. Well, of course, he dresses like a knight with chunks of armor, and his origin is a mystery even to him. He's incomplete. He's a man looking for the missing pieces of his soul. So
Look at that.
he gets drafted into a battle against the evil sorcerer and his minions, and that's how he ends up. Even if he doesn't, still doesn't know who he is, even if there's still parts of his life missing, he finds a purpose, and that is how the story kicks off. So, who will love this? I believe, well, people who like fantasy and superhero, both genres. Yes, this is the book for you. People who like, I don't know, um, comics such as Moon Knight, Daredevil,
Mm.
Batman, all those street level types of heroes. Also, even maybe if you like urban fantasy properties, I don't know, Highlander or
Oh, sure.
those types of stories that mix fantasy but in our modern age. That's I believe that's more or less the people that would love this book.
That's
And
someone like me.
also, sounds great. Feel free
Yeah,
to check it out. And
I will. I will.
even even the even I dare say people who get sort of fed up of seeing repetitive stories, right, in mainstream comics. Yeah, I encourage them to also give this book um, a chance. It's it's also got it's got several things that I'm quite proud of. The ensemble cast, um, the variety of powers and skill sets that each character has. I believe it's a quite unique combination. So yeah, I'd encourage them to give it a chance. And of course, the art is great. It's pretty solid. We offer three different cover options if you buy the physical. There's catch-up tiers, and again, this is an issue 5, which, yes, as we've touched on a previous subject, it may disencourage some people, but I think that an issue 5, or as Ed said, he has an issue 9 coming out. For
Yeah.
indie comics, for small press, that's huge. That
Hmm.
we can take stories this far, that's huge. What is the usual thing? One or two issues not completing the story, and you never hear from them again.
Right. Right.
That
Exactly.
is
Hmm.
that is what we see every day. But I think that if you see a story that such as Night or Ed's, that this we have one full story act compiled in a trade, and I'm starting the second one. So this is a great jumping on point for people. Uh, you want to catch up, just order the trade, or we also offer the individual floppies if you prefer. And issue 5, you with issue 5 you can start this act and follow up as we release each issue. So yeah, I think that is what yeah, also, as I said before, the book is done. So as soon as Kickstarter deposits the funds, uh, the PDFs go out, all digital rewards go out, and the physical, it's just a matter of waiting for the printer to deliver the books. And like I said before, Phil is a fulfilling machine. He gets the books. They will be at the post office either the following day, or if it's a Sunday, perhaps on Monday.
Hey, and can I ask you a quick regional question? And I ask this
Yes,
with no
sure.
irony. I know you're in Buenos Aires, and we got here over at Earth Dog Studios. We have two Argentinians who we just love. The inspiration for comic
You mentioned,
making
yeah.
seems very strong in Argentina and Brazil too. That's another conversation. But do you know, can you point to what it was that inspired you? Was it taught in the school? Was there a series? What got you into it?
Um, well, I've been a fan of superheroes for a long part of my life. My love for comics actually started in the mid 90s, more or less, late 90s maybe, when I got hooked on the Marvel TV shows, Spider-Man and X-Men mostly. I got hooked. I started collecting comics, uh, mostly Marvel, but also a couple from DC. Spawn, I also loved. I also got into really heavy into. I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with Malibu's Ultraverse
Yeah, yeah,
titles from the 90s. Yeah,
sure. Yeah.
I also got hooked on those. And also, my other inspiration is my love for fantasy stories. I love all of the medieval fantasy, magic, sorcerer, Lord of the Rings, and I guess that love also got kickstarted again in the early 2000s, when everybody started sharing MP3s, right? And it was the
Mhm.
golden age for Napster music piracy. And
Yeah.
basically, it meant that I could get and listen to absolutely whatever I wanted to, not necessarily needing to owning the CDs. Eventually, yes, I would buy the CDs of the. I also became a CD collector, not anymore because, well, it's they're not around and they're not as easy to get. But I became a CD collector for many heavy metal bands, and
Nice.
many of those dealt with fantasy themes,
Right. Right.
and well, not just fantasy, but also demons, monsters, all of
Yeah.
those stuff.
Yeah.
Iron Maiden, Dio,
Sure.
um, a lot of European bands,
I just looked to
and
see if I might have had my Iron Maiden shirt on. I didn't have it on, but
oh no. Well, this is sort of fan if you recognize the
oh, nice. Yeah.
yeah, the hand of the
Outstanding.
king. But
Exactly.
yeah, yeah, I also, so those are my biggest inspiration. I wanted to combine, and that's it, I guess.
Yeah.
Thanks
They're,
for
they're
asking.
great. They're great, great inspirations, man. I always like to hear what inspired people to make the things that they're making. So actually, we'll switch that over to Ed. I'm a little bit of a follower of his work already. I follow Immortal Era. I follow Corruptor. Edward Davis, what were your influences in making this project?
My first influence was just I read a story by Jonathan Swift. I've told this story before, but I was a college English lit major in college, and we read an excerpt from Gulliver's Travels. And in this excerpt, he finds an island of immortals and realizes immortality is terrible because he finds the people that are hundreds of years old, they're still living, they're haggardly, they can barely move, barely think. And that was just the little idea that just kind of blew up. But as for making this into a comic, because it was originally being written as a novel trilogy, making it into a comic, that kind of came from people like Neil Gaiman, Garth Ennis, Alan Moore, who do long form storytelling but in comic form. Because for me, that's what I want to do. I want to tell a story with a beginning, middle, and end, and not, well, now we can just keep spinning our wheels and reinvent, and this character dies, but guess what? They're back. It's like I have a story. I know exactly where every character is going to land, and just being able to tell this long form story in comic form is something I was inspired by all of those the people that were writing for Vertigo back in the 90s. That was
Oh,
kind of
sure, man. Yeah.
the Vertigo titles really kind of made me think this is a different way of looking at and reading comics.
That's a great answer too, man. I'm a huge Vertigo fan. You know, I write that cryptid book, which is a little bit in the style of Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol. Like I wouldn't ever say I copied someone. I say I framed it a little bit. Like if you like that, you would like this. It's kind of
You're inspired.
Yeah, I'm
That's inspired by.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you what, we're kind of getting into our last quarter here, our last 10 minutes or so. So let's go around the room. And Katrina, let's start with you. Tell us, first of all, I want to ask you one question, and I promise I won't steal from you. I want to hear how you find your editing work, and then tell the viewers where we can find you.
Well, I mean, I accidentally fell into editing. For those who know, I used to run a website called geekorama.net, and we were a review website. And I went to C2E2 my very first year with the site, and I was looking for comics to review. And somebody said, would you review my book, my prose book? Well, I've always been a big reader, so yeah, sure, why not? And he ended up being my first client. After I reviewed it, I let him know that there's some, grammatical punctuation issues. And when he was looking for an editor, he contacted me. Just recommended to Brian. How do I find it? I have to give a lot of credit to Russell Nolte. I've been working with Russell for a number of years now. I've been his proofreader on almost every one of his books.
That's how we met, Katrina.
Yep. And I actually just took over editing a new book for him as the main editor. But he has pushed my name out there for so many people. And then through the comics, I think a lot of you people know me for comics, and they go, "Oh wait, you do prose too." And so they've contacted me for that. So a lot of it's just accidental, word of mouth. As for where to find me, I have catscratchpress.com. I'm on Instagram as Life with Katie, Katrina Roets on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. I'm not hard to find. Ask around, somebody probably knows how to reach me.
Gotcha. Guido, how about you? Right now, we're talking about the Kickstarter. That's live right now. But other than that, where's the best place for the viewers to find you?
They can find me on Facebook. Look me up, just Guido Martinez. And I also have a page for Night called Night by Guido Martinez. And yes, I'm also on Twitter or X. And my username is G_Mart and the number 8. So yeah, it's complicated, but all other usernames were taken. I just got fed up and I just wrote some with hieroglyphics. Just there you go.
Interesting.
But yeah, you can also find me on Twitter as well. I don't tweet much. Mostly my tweets right now are just to promote and to spread the word. But yeah, eventually I do retweet some cool stuff that I find lying around.
Gotcha. Well, I wish you every success with this project, Guido.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks. We're gonna need it.
Ed, how about you, my man? We'll do one final shout out for Immortal Era. I can definitely recommend this one. I've read the first couple. Viewers, go over right now and check it out. And other than the live Kickstarter, Ed Davis, where's the best place for followers to find you?
You can find me under Finish Line Comics on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, X, whatever it is now. I'm kind of like Guido. I don't do a lot on Twitter. I post the campaign a few times, retweet some stuff, if I get a mention in it. And then I just created a YouTube channel for Finish Line Comics. It doesn't have a lot of content now, but it's something I have a lot of big plans for over the next few months. And also I do have a TikTok, same thing as my YouTube. It doesn't have a lot going on, but I'm going to start creating a lot of short little 1-minute reviews of other indie comics and like behind the curtains peeks. add stuff from Immortal Era to keep those two accounts moving, because I know I teach kids, so I know what they like, and you never hear them talking about Twitter, you never hear them talking about Facebook, but they're always talking about YouTube, they're always talking about TikTok. So it's time that I get with the times and start upping my game.
Right.
I know. I just got with Twitch, so I have a show on Twitch now, and I'm like, am I too old for this?
Probably, but who cares? We're probably all too old for the kids ones, but we're gonna infiltrate and then go on to something else.
That's not going to stop us. That's not going to stop us. Well, that's terrific, man. I want to thank you guys for coming on the show and to share your opinions on such a valuable topic, and to wish you every success with your projects. As always, it's a pleasure. To the viewers, thanks for tuning in. This is an episode of The Creative Cranium. We'll see you next Friday night. Good night, everybody.